Okay, so here is the data. This is what you'll have. This is what you'll import from the Google Drive folder into Excel. Uh, and there's 20 total trials, but we really only care about the last 16. These are the last 16 trials. The first four are considered practice. And then there are four conditions of this experiment. There's two factors, each with two levels, so four conditions. The first factor is hemifield, whether the target stimulus is presented in the left or right hemifield. The other factor was type of stimulus, whether it was a whole word or whether it was a single letter, whether the target stimulus was a whole word or a single letter. So 2x2 design. And so you can just write these things, you can just type those into Excel. Once again, you can just type them into Excel right here. I used merge and center to make it look pretty with the L's and the L and the R. I used merge and center to make it look centered and pretty. So the formulas that you will use start right here. What these two columns are doing is we are taking information which is in column A about whether the stimulus was presented in the left or right hemifield, and we're getting that letter L or R by itself, left or right hemifield. Also over here on the seventh position in this sequence of letters and numbers is either the numbers 1 or 2. If it's a 1, that means the target stimulus was a whole word. If it's number 2, that means the target stimulus was a single letter. So starting with the hemifield column, I'm using the formula equals mid. And then the cell that I'm using that formula on is A5 right here. And I'm looking for the fifth character. So the fifth character here, XLXX, is an R. And I just want that one character. So cell A5, the fifth character, and I just want the one character, which is an R. And then you can use the drag down technique or just copy and paste, and you're going to get 8 L's and 8 R's if you did this correct, because half the trials were on the left hemifield, half the trials were in the right hemifield. Then move over to this next column. This is once again ones and twos for whether the target stimulus was a word or a single letter. The seventh position is what we care about now. So we're using the formula equals mid. We're going back to cell A5 right here because we're in the fifth row. And now we care about the seventh character. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is a 2, which means that this stimulus right here was a single letter. And we just want that one character. So the seventh position, the seventh character, and we just want the one character. Copy and paste it or drag it down. To do that for everyone, you should get half the trial should be twos, that is single letters, and half the trial should be ones, that is the target stimulus is a whole word. Then once again, this stuff right here, you just type that in manually, but you're using formulas for all this stuff right here. And each of these formulas is an embedded if-then statement. So whether you got it correct or not is right here. I got them all correct. I'm pretty sure if you get it wrong, it's going to say 2 here. And so the dependent variables are not correct. And so we need to get whatever the information here, we need to get it into the correct column over here. So each one of these is an embedded if-then statement. So it's got like two if components. So equals if F5, if the condition is L, it is not. If the condition is L, which this one happens to not be, and the embedded if, the 1 appears here, which means it's a word stimulus. So if it's in the left hemifield and that stimulus is a word, that is, if there's a 1 here, then you are going to have Excel copy and paste whatever appears here. Whatever appears here will either be a 1 if it's correct or a 2 if it's wrong. And then you're going to drag it down. So if G5 equals 1, then you're going to B5 right there, and then you're going to drag it down. Do that for all of them. Here, you'll have 1s and 2s that appear here. 1s if it's correct, 2 if it's wrong. Similar thing over here. If F5 equals L, which it doesn't for this particular trial, and then the embedded if, and then if the G5 equals 2, meaning it's a single letter stimulus, which in this case it is, then you're going to copy and paste whatever is right here. But this is not an L stimulus, so Excel just writes false there. And you'll drag it down. So here in this cell right here, if F5 equals R, which it does, R comes from right there. If F5 equals R, and then embedded if, then if G5 equals 1, which it does not, then you're going to copy and paste whatever is in cell B5. But there's a false here because this is a 2, not a 1, so we get a false. Drag it down. And then finally, for this one, if this is if F5 equals R, which it does, and then the embedded if G5 equals 2, which it does, then you're going to copy and paste whatever is in B5, which for me, I got it correct. So the number 1 appears there. If I got it wrong, it would be the number 2. Then I'm going to drag it down. So you can't just take the average of these things because you're going to have a mixture of 1s and 2s, and we don't want the 2s. It'd be nicer if the 2s were by default 0s, because then we could just take the average, or we could just sum up the total amount correct here, but we can't do that. So instead, what we have to do is create one more column, or 4 more columns of simple if-then statements. Once again, you can just type this stuff right up here manually. In this cell right here, the if-then statement is equals if H5 equals 1. That means if this trial is correct, then type a 1 there, and otherwise it's going to put the false there. So everything that would be a 2, that was a 2 here, if you would have had 2s, if you missed something, 2s are going to appear here. Because of the if-then statements you're writing here, those 2s that were over here will now turn into falses. So I'll show you a couple more here. You would drag this down. Once again, if H5 equals 1, then Excel writes a 1 here, otherwise it writes a false. Drag it down, copy and paste. I'll show you one more. If I5 equals 1, then you're going to have Excel copy and paste a 1 right there, but my I5 does not equals 1, it is a false, so the false appears right here. And you'll do that for each one. And you'll drag them down. Then finally, down at the bottom, because all those 2s should be gone. If you miss answers, it's going to show us a 2 here, but over here, all those 2s should turn into falses. And so now we can just sum up each column. So sum of the M's, the sum of the N's, the sum of the O's, and the sum of the P's. And then this is what you are going to copy and paste into the Google Sheet.